and we'll go ahead and admit our 5 people. Oh, there's 6, but one of them's probably one of us. No, I think there's 6 now. So, and here we come. Welcome. So glad to have you this afternoon. We will get started shortly as we're letting people into the session. So I know with the elementary group, we had some folks gathered watching on a screen. Some of you may be at your own machines. So if you don't mind, if you will have someone type for me, you know, if you're there by yourself, just put your name and your school. But if you are in a room with a big group, you can tell me what school and, you know, staff or teachers or who all is in the room with you. You can put that in the chat for me as we are letting some other folks into the session this afternoon. And as people are coming in, we will copy and paste the link to the handout. It is a whopper of a handout, but you're definitely going to want to have that to drive what we're doing today. And also for all of the links and resources that are there, you're going to want to see those after the fact. So be sure that you access that handout. Go ahead and pull that up. And shortly, I'll also have a slide up here that has the QR code if you want to scan it with your phone. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then you will be able to see that handout that I was talking about. So you can either type that URL in, or if you want to use your phone to look at the handout while you look at my screen, then you can use the camera on your phone. Typically, most new phones now, when you use the camera and you just hold it up to that QR code, it will pop up a little link to the website. All right, so I know that we will be very short on time, and I will go at a faster pace than I really wanted to, but I also want to make sure that I get to all of the information that you want to know today. I'm not sure how many people that will be with us today have seen any other Schoology or Schools PLP webinars or trainings, but you guys are my guinea pigs. This is my first training with Schoology and Schools PLP, and I'm going to tell you that I spent a lot of time, really the last 2 weeks, doing what I call kicking the tires on this program. I'm a big fan of Schoology. I think it is really great for organization, and I think that a lot of teachers are going to like it. I do get a lot of questions about how does it compare to Google Classroom, and hopefully you'll develop your own opinion today after we go through this. I know several of you may have been in trainings with me on Google Classroom, and you don't have to abandon all of your Google stuff. So hopefully this will be helpful to you today to figure all of that out. So like I said, if you do not have that URL typed in yet, I definitely want you to either pull that up in a separate tab on your computer, or use your phone or tablet and scan that code. so that you can follow along on the handout. I was jokingly telling my colleagues, I don't typically do handouts, but I have the whole thing printed out right here as my guide. And yes, it's 9 pages long, but that's because I tried to include links, some screenshots, and also just some visuals to help drive everything. So if you have questions, I have my wonderful team with me today, Alabama Technology in Motion. And we don't have a lot of time to introduce people today, but they are fantastic. And you can learn more about them and about all of the things Technology in Motion does at our website. And feel free to go there because you're going to find other remote learning and virtual learning resources, how-to videos, tutorials. Pretty much if a teacher has said, I need to know how to do this in remote learning, we've probably made a video or a slideshow or a webinar about it. So definitely check that out. My colleagues that are in the session with us today will answer any questions that you have in the chat. And then they'll stop me if I need to stop and go back over something. So they also will be dropping the link to the handout in the chat as people come in so that they can access that. And if you've done any other Zoom sessions, you know that people just entering the session don't have access to the chat history. So they will continue to paste that link in there for people just coming in so they can follow that handout as you watch the screen and see me kind of click through everything in Schoology. So I think I have a lot more people at their own individual machines today for this session. So just as a reminder, we have you automatically muted when you come in, and your video, if you start having any bandwidth issues, you can cut that off. But feel free to utilize that chat to give any reactions like the thumbs up if you have access to that. But then you can also see the participants list if you just click that at the bottom. All right, so we are going to get started, jump right into our content. Today, the objectives are to introduce you to Schoology. We'll spend the bulk of our time looking at the navigation, the vocabulary, and the location of everything in Schoology. And we'll look at communication. There's a few communication tools you'll want to be aware of. The difference in courses and groups. And then we'll spend a lot of time on the different teacher tasks that you will be doing within the Schoology platform, like adding materials, graded assignments and tests, eventually getting to the school's PLP content that you're going to see that you will be using it more like a digital textbook as you build assignments and graded assignments within the Schoology platform. And then the handout is, like I mentioned, 9 pages long, filled with links to videos, websites, resources, because really the last 2 weeks I spent time finding other people's information about how to do certain things in Schoology. There's no way we can cover it all in an hour. So what I wanted to do was give you links so that when you're going through this handout, you can click, go to a video, and see how to do this. I'm also recording today, at least I think I am, yes. And so I will be putting that recording link out there, making it available if you would like to look back at this webinar. All right, so I am just gonna start with the beginning of this handout and kind of walk through this. I don't expect you to log into Schoology because of time. It's mostly going to be a show and tell. So if you'll hang with me on the handout, I'm just gonna click through Schoology and sort of follow these steps. So the first thing is you're gonna log into Schoology at Schoology.com. You'll either have a username or your email, whatever credentials that your district has given you, and you'll log in. When you get here, you're going to land on a page called Recent Activity. This is going to be anything people have shared, updates, things they added to their courses, whoever you have access to or you're connected to, you're going to see that information here. The other tab right here in the white is your course dashboard. This is a landing spot for any courses that you're a teacher in or any courses you're a member of. So any course that I am an admin or a teacher in, I'm going to see this yellow shield. And you can go down and see Carol's. I'm a member of it, but I am not a admin. So that's the difference in these courses. You'll notice too that these courses all kind of have some individual pictures and icons. So as you move forward, it will become important for you to personalize those different courses so you can at a glance know what course is what, because the default picture means that these courses all look similar. So that is your recent activity and your dashboard. This is just going to be some of your most recent courses. And now we're going to look across the top. So across the top, you're going to have courses, groups, and resources. Now, there is a difference in courses versus groups. So I did want to spend just a little bit of time talking about that. Groups are for communication and collaboration outside your course or outside your classroom. These are great for clubs, teams, faculty, parents, and grade level groups. So you may find it helpful to have all the science teachers in a group, and you guys can share resources and share ideas in that group as well. Groups is also where you're going to find the school's PLP content. It's loaded there from your district, and all of you will have access to that group and can pull resources from that group. Courses are for assignments, materials, and grades. So you'll have announcements, a course calendar. This is where you're going to spend most of your time, is in your courses. So across the top, I'm going to go to courses, and it's going to drop down just a short snippet of some of my most recent courses. And over on the right, and this is the same when you get to groups, you're going to see my courses. And if you're in groups, it'll be my groups. Going here is important because it's going to give you a lot more ability to do things with your courses. So I would click on my courses. Now I have them in a list view, or I have them in this kind of thumbnail view. Here's when I can add additional sections. So since I'm talking to my secondary people, if I needed to add additional sections to a course, I can do that here. I can create courses here, and I can join a course here, or I can reorder my courses. So when we looked at that course dashboard, if I wanted them to be in order, first period, second period, third period, I can reorder my courses here. So I want to take a minute and talk about what it's going to look like for you when school starts. So all the things I'm going to talk about today when you're creating a course, I want you to think about, say, I was a high school English teacher, and I'm going to say I teach a section of 9th grade English. I'm going to want to work on my 9th grade English course and get it like I like it. The district level will push out your course, what they're calling course shells, to you with the members of those courses. So when your schedules are ready to go and they're ready to push out your courses, you would see English 9, section 1, 2, 3, or however they're going to be listed, they're ready for you. So that doesn't mean you can't work on a course right now. You can build that course, and then you can move that course into those shells, copy it into those shells. So keep in mind, when we talk about creating a course and creating sections, you won't necessarily have to create them from scratch, because the names of those and the membership in those should be pulled over from your district. But this is where, if you needed to create a course or join a course, you could do it. Now, I mentioned groups and I mentioned courses. If you needed to join a course, so let's say that I wanted to join Carol's course, I would go to join a course, and Carol would give me an access code. That access code allows me to join that course. And most of your students won't have to do that join code because they'll be put in there from the information system. And so that's where you see all your courses listed. Groups is going to look very similar. You'll go over here to the right to My Groups, and you see your groups listed. So these are my personal groups that I'm a member of. Notice I have the join group, still can get that access code and join a group. I'm going to have a list of my school groups. So any groups that are created within my school that I have access to will be here. And then there's a really unique feature called public groups. So if you are interested in educators all over the world that are using Schoology, that are science teachers, that are language arts teachers, you could join these groups and kind of see what they're doing with Schoology. So you have that option to join groups and to create groups here. Next up, across the top of navigation, you're going to see resources. You're going to spend a lot of time in resources because what you're going to find is within all of your courses and sections, you will be adding things into this filing cabinet of resources, and then you'll be pulling things from that resource filing cabinet. So you have on the left some different options. It's going to default to home, which is your personal filing cabinet of resources. So as I'm building my course, I can simply copy anything over to my personal resources. So notice I have folders, I have tests over here, I have an assignment. So any of those things I can pull into my resources. Below that is public resources. Some people have generously added folders full of content, ideas. You can search by subject, by grade level. So you might find resources people have shared here in these public resources. If you like a resource, all you got to do is click that folder and it is added to your resources. And let's see, I know that it went there. I think it's added to, yeah, there we go, in my downloads. Public resources is where I got that. Next up is groups. This is important because this is where I can add things to my other groups that I'm a member of. So I've created this teacher group and we're all sharing handouts or slideshows that we've made. But then underneath there, I have a folder called course content. This is what the ALSDE created for the school's PLP content. Yours may have another name, but it will live in groups. And that's where you'll go to grab whatever content pieces you want to grab from school's PLP. And so the one thing I want to mention, I'll mention this again, when you're ready to copy this over, and these gears over here are going to be important. You do not want to add the top tiered folder. You want to drill down into that folder and grab small chunks of content. One, because it takes a long time to load, and two, you're going to find that it kind of muddies up your course, and you have to go and hide a lot of stuff because you're not going to want your students to see everything. So keep that in mind. This is under groups, and it's under the group section over here. That is where your PLP content should live. And the last thing at the bottom, these are apps. And so you have an opportunity in the App Center to connect certain apps. And this is where your Google stuff that you've been working really hard on can be accessed. So everything that's in my Google Drive is accessible here. I can search the drive. I can add resources here. If I add it here, it's going to show up in my Google Drive outside of Schoology. And I can go to options and I can log out of one Google account and log into another one. So if you open this and you see this is not my stuff, it may be your personal Google Drive that it grabbed. And so you can simply go to account settings and sign into that Google Drive. Okay, so how do I get all of these apps? Well, that's going to be over here in these icons across the top at the App Center. So when I go to the App Center, I can filter some up here, or I can just scroll and look, and I can add any of these apps. Some of them are pay apps, but a lot of them are not. And so I can choose like Google Drive assignments and choose install. And that will make a button within my graded assignments that allow me to quickly attach anything from Google Drive to my assignments. This one is going to be super helpful to you, and that can be found there in the App Center. And a lot of other apps that I see teachers using are found in that App Center, so definitely check that out. Next, over here in these icons, calendars. Anytime you've created a course, you'll have a corresponding calendar. Messages is the next part. That is internal messages only. And it looks like it's not, there we go. These are internal messages. So I can send a message to a student here, and they can send a message back to me. And I can also create messages. It is not linked to your email, but you can do internal messages here and communicate with students. And then the bell would be notifications. So if you had a little orange number up there, it would let you know that a student has submitted an assignment. Someone you're connected with has added something, a resource. So all of these notifications will let you know what's going on in your Schoology. All right, over on the right, you see my name and my profile picture. So you have several different things in your drop down, may look different than mine, but the first thing you're gonna see is your profile. I encourage you to personalize your profile. You can hover over it, click edit picture, and upload a picture there. You can add some information about you. It shows all the courses and groups that you're a part of. Honestly, updates, I've not seen a lot of use for. Updates are really more internal and more for people you're connected with, not course specific. Info is where we landed. And then there's blog and portfolio. This was more for, I think, a professional blog, and then anything you wanted to display professionally there as well. Underneath profile is going to be any schools that you're a part of. So I'm a part of the Alabama Technology and Motion School. So that's there, the e-learning school. Underneath that is settings. And that's where most of you, once you have your Schoology account and course working, you probably won't need to do this, but you can make changes to your email or your password here. All right, so that was just a quick overview of the different navigations. So now we're going to get into what you would do as a teacher. Okay, so if I needed to create a course, remember courses, my courses, and then I would simply click create course. I would put all the information there. A lot of people are making what's called a sandbox course or a test course or like English 9 draft or whatever you want to call it, and starting to load their resources and organize that like they want it, so that when they're ready, they can then copy all of that into their scheduled shell courses. So here you would add some of this required information and then the grading period, and then you would click create. And that's there in join a course. So once I have the course created, I would click right here and go into my course. Now, I know I'm dealing with secondary people, and you may think the Bitmoji Classroom banner is a little much, but I'm extra, and I wanted to make it look as cool and cute as I could, just to show you that you can do those things in Schoology. So on my little screenshot in the slideshow, I kind of talk about this left navigation menu and what your options are there. So underneath that icon that is your course picture, and notice when I hover over it, I can edit it. So on that picture, you may want that picture to be a number: first period, second period, third period. You may want that to be a mascot, something related to your subject area, but it needs to be different so that when kids look at their classes, they can see what class is what. So you can edit that picture, but underneath that picture is this course options drop down. And so this is important because you have some of these features, but probably the most important feature for you guys is view course as. And if you have a student loaded, and we actually have a test student, I can click on that and I can view what the course looks like from the student point of view. That is important. As you're creating all of this, you're going to want to know, what is it the students see? And all you have to do is click back to course and it takes you back to the teacher view. So that is really important. The next thing underneath that is updates. For the most part, the updates button is going to be significant if you want to add something at the very top of your class. That's where, excuse me, I added this banner, but you can also add announcements and anything that you want students to see immediately. But in order to do that in updates, I would write everything that I wanted, but it's significant that you choose this little paper airplane. That is what makes something an announcement versus just an update. So here's updates. Those are nowhere to be seen on that front page of that class. So keep in mind, these are things that you can set up, but if you want them to be visible at the top of the class, you need to check this paper airplane, and that's under updates. Next is your grades and setup. That's a whole workshop in itself, but I have a link there to a teacher that gave some great information about setting up your grade book. And then I also, for those of you that like the way this looks in the course with the banner at the top or with these folder covers, I have some links to how to do that as well. So the other thing you're going to want to know other than the grade setup is members. If I go to members on the left, this is going to show anyone who's a member of my class. And this is also where I can add members. So if you and another teacher want to sort of be in each other's classroom, kind of stalk what they're doing, see what they've got going on, or a special ed teacher, EL teacher, a coach, whoever would need to be a member of your class, you can add them. And then over here on the right, you can make them an admin or remove that status from them. So the little gold shield there indicates that they are a teacher in the class. All right, so we're going back to materials. This is where you're going to spend a lot of your time. And so right here are my three main buttons when it comes to adding materials. When I click on that button, it's going to give me this huge drop down with all of my options. So you'll probably spend a lot of time creating folders and subfolders just to organize everything. So when I go to add folder, I can call this a test folder, and I can give it a color. I can give it a description. I can have a date where that folder becomes live and that folder expires. So that may be something that you want to do. The other option for that is publish and unpublish. So I know as a high school teacher, I would not necessarily want all 9 weeks of my course visible to students. I may only want 1 week visible at a time. So you're going to want to manipulate this published and unpublished option within folders and within all of your different assignments and pieces of content. So if I say it's published, then it's visible to students, and I'm going to click create. Now, what I don't love is that it puts it at the very bottom. So you do have the option to click and drag, and it sometimes works really well and sometimes it does not. But when you click on it, in most cases, I can click and drag. Of course, it is not doing it right now. But in most of these cases, you can click and drag and reorder the different things within your class. The other option, let's say that it did not reorder and I really need it to be moved into this secondary folder. Always look at the gear over on the right, and it has the option to move. Now, I mentioned earlier when I said when you go into groups, you have access to that school's PLP content. I'm about to show you why you're going to want to move small chunks of content at one time. Because when I use this move function, which I have used a lot when it came to organizing my course, this is why you don't want to move the entire physical science folder into your course at once. That is, in my favorite phrase, a hot mess. So only move over what you want from school's PLP, or you're having to figure out where am I going to put this. So I actually want to put this in week 1 folder and move. So now that folder that was just stuck at the bottom is in secondary week 1, I believe. Yep, test folder. So once you have learned how to add folders, you're going to find that you are going to want to organize things maybe by weeks, maybe by units, by lessons, however you're accustomed to doing that. And that's with folders. So now next you've got assignments, tests, quizzes, assessments, files. You know, if you can think of it, you can add it. So there's a lot of different options. On the slide there, I've got a little screenshot that talks about assignments, test, quiz, and assessment. These are really your only graded pieces. The other things that you'll load in materials are going to be handouts, links, discussions, pages, and then this add package would be import something from your resources, which, I'm sorry, that arrow should actually go right there. Import from resources is the other thing that's going to be super important to you when it comes to utilizing this add materials box. All right, so I have this one labeled pages allow you to attach and embed a lot of information. Now, this was the first page that I played with because you have the option to add a page. And I added a table, I added some pictures, I added a video. So you have lots of different options when it comes to a page. So you may find this to be useful, but I did want to bring your attention to 2 separate places to add things to your page. You can type directly into it. You've got all these formatting tools. Up here at the top, you have a place for links. So I just added a link with that button. And then you have insert content. Now by using this button at the top, it allows that content to show up in that page. Notice that any of the apps that I have connected are here. And then I can add a picture or a link here as well. My math teachers, there's a place for an equation, or the LaTeX editor as well. So I can add anything right into this page and make it very visual. Using the tables, you can add pictures, you can link those pictures, you have a lot of options. At the bottom, you also have these options. These also will attach something, but they will only attach it like a handout. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this QR code on here. And then I've got resource. So actually I can grab anything from my resources. So here is a folder in a PDF. So I'm gonna attach that. So any of these things, they're gonna just show up as a resource or a handout in the bottom. I can add a hyperlink. I added a recording, and I think that's a really neat feature that you can add an audio or video recording right here within this page. And then when I'm done, I have these options. Now, notice when I first clicked on this, it just had the title of the page. And so I have publish or not publish if I want it to be hidden or I want it to be live. But this is pretty significant. Display on a new page or display in line. When I choose display in line, it is right there in front of the students. Let me show you the difference. Okay. So I have clicked that, and if I use my breadcrumbs, and so this is another thing that's going to be handy to you is going back in these breadcrumbs. And I'm ready to see my page. Let's see. it opens it up right there in line. It does not open it in a new window, which I think is pretty handy. So be sure you know that when it comes to pages. I also have some other items here. This is an assignment. Okay, so I have add an assignment. I'm just going to click on that. And with this one, I've given kind of step-by-step. I've put some pictures. And I did find that even though I say view as a student, I did not see the submission button. But each assignment will have a submission button where your students can submit something. So if I made an assignment, I attached some resources to it, I could then make it available for those students and they can quickly submit. Now I mentioned publishing and unpublishing things. So I've got all of this available, but let's say I don't want my students to see this assignment at the bottom because that's the very last thing I want them to do. This gear on the right allows me to unpublish that assignment. And that will gray it out on my end and it won't be visible to the students. Okay, and I'm going to click into this assignment just to show you what it looks like. So watch the week 1 videos, fill out the attached hyperdoc, submit by the deadline. One handy thing about assignments, and so if I'm going to go and add an assignment like that one, I get to give it a name. Whoops, it helps if I spell it right. And I can put some instructions right here. I can insert content right here as well, like an image or whatever. But if I have my Google Drive assignments app connected, then I can click this and it will open up my Google Drive and allow me to assign something from Google. The neat thing about this is if I attach that, notice what it does. It will create a copy of your file for every student. So those of you that used Google Classroom know that that was something you had to determine. This automatically makes a copy for them. So as I'm creating these graded assignments, that is super important. I can add due dates. I can add my points. I do have to choose a category. And then I have those same options at the bottom, publish to students. If I want to copy it to other courses, I can do that. And then I would click create. And so there's my assignment down there at the bottom. I didn't put any directions, so the directions aren't there. But when I click on it, here it is. And when the student clicks here, it's going to open up their Google account. And so they would work in this and then they would submit it back to their teacher. I think that's pretty cool. It also shows you any students who have opened that assignment and submitted that assignment right there in this assignment section. And so I'm going to go back into my breadcrumbs there at the top, into this week 1 folder. And under add material, so that was an assignment. I'll come back to tests and quizzes in just a minute. But if you're looking at the handout there on page 4, I think you guys are going to be very interested in something up here at the top under options called student completion. So if I'm a high school teacher and I'm assigning several folders worth of work this week that I expect students to go through, I'm going to want to know that they actually went through the content and did not just try to go straight to the questions at the end of the book. We all know those kids. So I have the option to set up some student completion rules. Now notice I'm setting this one up at the week 1 level of this. I can drill down into a particular assignment and set the rules. But for this one, this is all of the things contained in week 1. I said they have to complete the lesson 1 folder. They have to submit these 2 assignments. They have to complete these other content folders. And at the last, where they have their last graded assignment, they have to make at least a 75. Notice I have checked requirements must be completed in sequential order. So it's very important that I have documentation that my students went through my physical science content, went through this lesson, at least viewed the items in that folder, that they have submitted an assignment, and they can't move on. It won't even let them access the next lesson. Even if it's published, it won't let them have it. So that's going to be very important to you. And I have a link to a couple of resources on those student completion rules. And once you have added some materials, I would encourage you to play around with that, because that's going to be super important to you guys. All right, moving on to, I have a screenshot, and I don't have it here, but it's on the handout, talking about graded assignments. And so if it felt like I went too fast, this screenshot should talk to you a little bit about those pieces. And I have it indicated here that if you don't have the app or the extension, you may not see those same buttons. I've linked some videos here for OneDrive assignments, Google Drive assignments, if you have access to the Kami Chrome extension. A lot of the content in Schools PLP are PDFs. So you're going to want some way for students to either write their information on another document or annotate that PDF. So I have some information there. And then submitting an assignment without anything connected to it. So there's a short video on that. All right, getting to assessments versus tests. So if you look at your add materials there, you have add test and quiz, add assessment. The assessment tool is fantastic. You can set up due dates. You can decide if you want submissions to be enabled. You can put a password. You have to choose a category, and you can determine if this is published or not. So I'm going to click create. If you are willing to create your test from scratch, this is a great test generator. You can add instructions. There are lots of assessment settings like time limits, randomizing, so many features that are in just high quality test generators. And then you go to questions, look at all of the different question options. Now, I'm no fool. I know that you guys are thinking, I don't have time to create these fancy tests. I would say that this is a year-long process of you guys possibly working together or working with your district folks on creating some tests, some question banks. But there's really, there's a lot of different kinds of questions you can add. But on a multiple choice question, it's not simply copy and paste from a document. Each of these has their own kind of formatting. And you can find tons of YouTube videos on how to make this test just look great. But I love the assessment maker, but I'm going to be honest with you, for the first couple of weeks, you may not have time to do that. So what you may want to try are some of the other options, and I have this on the handout. And one of the videos is called How to Hack the System When It Comes to Quizzes and Tests. And so you can simply add a multiple choice question just like you do in the assessment generator. And you have several options, and you can create the question one by one. The other option, and I have linked a document and a video on how to do this, is that you can do import. Now, unfortunately, you can't just import a PDF or import a Word document. You have to have it in a zip folder, and it has to be formatted a certain way. And so you simply click File, and it lets you import this test. And so I am going to possibly quickly put this in here. I think I called it physical science. Well, I thought I had it handy. It may be, there it is, physical science. So this is a zip folder that I created using this method, and I'm going to import. And just because I went in and did some formatting to this and zipped it up using this folder, it pull these multiple choice questions in, and I can click preview and see what this looks like. And so this is going to be a quicker option for some of you. Even quicker than that, there's a video of a guy who uses a lot of screenshots, and my math teachers will love his video. So definitely check that out. All right, so that's tests and assessments. I do have some tips down here at the bottom of page, at the bottom of the page talking about copying the entire course into resources. So like I mentioned, your district will be creating course shells for you. After you've worked and created like the first couple of weeks, let's say, of your 9th grade English class, you may be ready to put that in. So I've got a link there to how to create, like take this whole course and import it. Also at the end of the year, you're gonna want to do that step and have that whole course in your personal home filing cabinet so you can access it again. And then now we're going to take the last few minutes here and look at the school's PLP content. So I'm going to go to groups and go to course content. All right, so under course content, I have a resources filing cabinet on the left. Ours is called Schools PLP. Your group that you're in may be called something totally different, but remember I went to group, went to course content, which may be where your school's PLP stuff lives, and I went to resources. All right, and I click Schools PLP, and I'm going to see folders with my different grade levels. And this is where I made my mistake. I went into science, I scrolled down and I found physical science, and I went over to the right and I chose add to course. And it added everything under physical science. So my advice to you is drill into that course. Go to course resources, look at things like the pacing guide. You may look at this and go, I don't really need some of this stuff. And so, print this out, mark the things you don't think you'll need, and then go into the different course folders. Let's see, I have to go back here. Go into the different course folders and see what exactly is you're going to use. So I find that this is going to be like a digital textbook for you. So in physical science, I've looked at the course resources. I decided what I needed. Use my breadcrumbs. I go into this introduction piece, click into lesson 1, and you're going to want to look at each of these resources and see if you want to assign them to your students. Okay, so let's say that I like this one. This is something for them to read. And I go through this and go, yep, that's useful. There's a video, there's something else that they can watch. And so now I want to assign that to the course. I'll click here and do add to course. Now, you can do what I did, which was choose entire lesson 1 and add that to the course. And I have a screenshot on here talking about using that gear and add to course. But here's another thing I want to mention to you. When you see the letters AK, that stands for answer key. So if you're going to utilize this show it piece where you want them to practice something, you might want to not pull over the answer key or unpublish the answer key when you get in there. So I'm going to go into my course and show you what this content looks like when it is in a course. So under secondary, I have week 1. Notice that I have my student completion rules set up that my students must complete the week 1 folder. As I go through this, if I click on student progress, it will actually show me what percentage my students have completed, and that's going to be helpful to you as well. If you see somebody's at 0%, then you can message them and encourage them. All right, so I'm going to go into week 1. So this is probably going to be the most significant piece for you guys. When you go into a lesson, notice I've unpublished the answer key. So that's grayed out. And my students are going to read and they're going to show. So I'm going to actually step back into the elementary folder because I did not do it for you guys, but I want to show you what is going to be significant. In week 1, in lesson 1, here are these teach it, read it, play it, show it pieces. That's your content, front-loading content to your students. The important thing to note is if a student practices something within the PLP content, the teacher does not have access to their progress. Okay, for example, I know this is an elementary example, but this is a drag and drop activity. If they do it correctly, it turns green. If they try to drag it over and it's wrong, they don't get that. Now, I've set up the completion rules that say they have to go through this folder. But if they complete this, I do not get this information as the teacher. Scroll down, there's a PDF, and there's something to read. So for this particular assignment, you will need to make your own graded assignment if you want to put a grade associated with this. So I created a graded assignment. I actually downloaded both of the PDFs in that. And then I would have students submit their answers either on another document, a Google Doc, or if they have the Kami extension, they can write on the PDF. I think that's probably going to be the biggest obstacle for teachers, is understanding that this is literally a digital textbook, and anything a student does with that content will not go to you. You will have to create tests, assessments, assignments to be able to assess, to be able to give a grade. So what's the answer? Well, you can simply make assignments and add all of the things you've been doing in class, all of the Google Forms quizzes that you already have, the slideshows, the worksheets. All you have to do is attach them and have ways for your students to submit them to you. The content that you access from PLP is a resource that your students may find helpful. And that may be something that will help. Instead of you going out and recording a lesson on something, it would be that you have the ability to access this physical science folder. And I can go to any of these lessons, and my students can read something regarding technology if that's one of my standards. They can watch something. And I mentioned this on the handout, but on each of these, and I think this is phenomenal, there is an immersive reader. So for some of your students that are struggling readers, EL students, when you click this.
Engineering and society. What is technology? Objective.
So it will take them through all of the content on the page, and they can even change the setting to highlight words, to slow it down. That's a really neat feature, and that's in all of the different pieces from Schools PLP. All right, I told you that this was going to be a very quick pace. I hope that you're encouraged that this is not difficult when it comes to creating all of this content and organizing it. I just hope that something that I've given you is going to help you with that. And be sure, if you don't have the handout, grab that link, print out that handout, use it as you're going through here and kind of kicking the tires. I will hang out here for about 5 more minutes if anybody wants to drop any questions in the chat or unmute and ask any questions. Otherwise, I really appreciate you guys being here this afternoon. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.